On today's episode of After Further Review, we're recapping last week of college football, looking to a massive week coming up ahead in college football. Then, in our final segment, we're going to be looking at why all of these young quarterbacks are struggling so badly. Stay tuned to check out all the latest. All right, we are back after a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's okay. Welcome into the episode of After Further Review. I'm Landon Patz, joined by Ty Gensler. How are you today, Ty?
Doing great. You know, we had a great week of college football and NFL last week. We were right about some things. We were wrong about some things.
We
But
were
guess
very
what?
wrong about some
We were
things.
a lot, especially my Thursday night prediction. But guess what? We're not engineers.
No.
We're not mathematicians.
No, not
we're
at all.
sports media majors.
No, exactly.
We get to do this and be absolutely wrong. Those lights are on, that camera's on, and we're still going to be here talking about sports.
We're still going to be doing a great thing. All right, well, I'm going to break us down through the entire part here. First segment, as we usually do, we're going to go into the college football overview, going over what happened last week, some of the biggest games. Segment 2, we're looking ahead to a massive week of college football coming up. We have, how many is that? 5 games that we're previewing on there?
A whole lot.
On the segment 3, we're looking back at our 3 Ws. We brought that last week. We're going to be bringing it back this week. Have Ty's 3 Ws, my 3 Ws. And then finally, in our final segment, we're going to be talking a little bit about why so many young QBs from the 2021 draft and forward have been struggling so badly. We've kind of noticed a trend going on. So we're going to get into all of those. But we want to start in college football. And I think there's probably no better way to start than with LSU South Carolina. One of my favorite games that we got to watch this weekend.
It was such
It
a
was
game.
so good.
Honestly, would I be surprised if, I don't know, Landon, maybe like, I don't know, South Carolina was 3 for 14 on 3 for 12 actually on third down. It was such, LSU being such a pass heavy drive and LSU being more, actually, I messed it up. LSU being much of a passing drive and South Carolina just liking to pound the ball, running it down the man's pace. It truly was a great game. It was honestly it was one thing you don't like with the refs and all that stuff. But, I mean,
Yeah.
refs are going to play a factor in any game.
Exactly. And at some point they kind of had to be a part of it and
Yeah.
make a difference. But I think probably the biggest thing in this game that I saw that I really enjoyed mostly was how resilient LSU was in this game.
Yeah.
Because at one point they were up 17-0, right? Lenore Sellers was awesome.
Yeah, no.
Then he gets hurt, and then we see a whole different South Carolina team. But overall, I thought it was a really great game. And I'll have to take it back. I did talk on the show a little bit how I thought it was a pretty bad college game day. The atmosphere was electric. The people were electric. The game was awesome. I
was a
can't
great
complain
game.
about
I
it.
knew
That's
it was
exactly
gonna
what you want from game day, right?
There wasn't really much others when it came to game day. The only other ones I could really think of was Bama versus Wisconsin, and that was a big noon game, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really the same just because Alabama blew out Wisconsin. But other the fact, you know what? Daily reminder: Ryan Williams is 17 years old.
God bless.
I've told you that like 6 times.
I've been getting texts for viewers at home. I've been getting texts from this man about how this man is 17. For now, it feels like a year. It feels like he should have been telling me this at 16.
He's 17 and he's scoring touchdowns against these.
That's
big
awesome.
defenses.
That's so cool. I'm so proud of him. Moving on, other than him just being a good receiver and his age doesn't truly matter that much.
It's still. I mean, you rarely. See
It's
that.
cool, but I don't care. Boston College went into Missouri, and this was a lot better game than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Missouri struggled for a little while in there. Their offense kind of struggled to get it going, and then pulled it out in the end. What are your thoughts on this game?
It was mainly just Missouri won off the turnover battles more than likely. I mean, Thomas Castellanos, he looked really good, and he had 250 passing yards, around 2 touchdowns, but he had a couple interceptions. It wasn't truly like a sight thing you'd want to see. That was just really how Missouri was able to take away, because Missouri did not look good whatsoever. And so when it came to that defense in Missouri, it's a non-conference game. You're going up against Boston College, which, remind you, they have a lot of NFL-type caliber coaches. So
Yes.
that experience alone is making why Boston College could honestly have a good shot. But other than that, I mean, Missouri won off the turnover battle. It's nothing I'm really worried about, but you have to have some concerns if you're Missouri.
Yeah. And honestly, for me right now, this kind of it puts into perspective who I think will end up winning the ACC, or at least be in the ACC championship. I still am very comfortable saying Miami is the best team in the ACC. But who is that second team at this point? Because Florida State's not. We don't have to talk about them.
I don't have to talk about
They're so bad. Clemson, however, actually bounced back and looked
did.
better.
They did.
And so now it's more of a who's in between there. Louisville has a big test coming up with Notre Dame here at some point, but I think those are going to be really, really interesting tests for a conference that is supposed to be pretty like up in the air, kind of like the Big 12 is. We're going to move on to who was the shocking game of the night.
Yeah.
Georgia at Kentucky. almost losing to Kentucky with one of the weirdest sequences at the end of the game I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, the play clock and time clock getting changed, I think, like 6 times because they couldn't figure out the right call. And honestly, what is up with the SEC refs? The Arkansas game was weird. The LSU game was weird. Kentucky versus Georgia was weird. It's not looking good when it comes to officiating.
It feels really off. And you know what this felt like to me more than anything was like a 1980s game of SEC football. Carson Beck, 15 for 24, 160 yards. Brock Vandegrift, 14 to 27, 114 yards, the former Bulldog who transferred into Kentucky. I just thought Kentucky was a tough-nosed football team, and that defensive line is awesome.
Yeah.
Georgia always kind of struggles in this spot, and they dropped for a reason that we'll kind of get into here in a second. But I think that it was a really interesting game overall. I think Georgia has a bye week coming up before they play Bama.
They do.
So get right game, figure it out, and they made it through. That was really the biggest thing.
You got
here.
out of there.
Yeah. Is it a good look? No. Is it going to matter in the long run? Probably not.
I mean, next week when it goes to Bama, it's going to be at Tuscaloosa in a primetime night game. So they're going to flip the switch. I ain't worried about this game. The only thing I can really say is just they're not disciplined at the moment, but that's going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing too crazy. It's still going to be a great game next week.
They also had a lot of injuries going on at the time. Like they had I think it was 4 D linemen that were out and injured. So that was part of it.
For sure.
That has a lot to do with it. I think that they'll be able to bounce back at another point.
It's not that really worried.
I want to mention a little bit. We didn't put a whole lot to this game just because it was kind of a blowout. But kudos to the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
You finally answered the questions that you needed to. They won 49-14 in Oregon State to beat the Beavers. Dylan Gabriel looked awesome. Their defense looked awesome. They finally had a put-together game, which feels weird after you play 2 teams in Idaho, and then you get your rivals in their place in Corvallis, and you all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, now we're good. Now we figured it out. But
some teams just need a couple of games just to, I don't know, like fix up, polish some stuff up. And there's a team I'll be talking about when we start getting into the next preview of games this week. But it's nothing I'm really too worried about with Oregon. It's the same with Georgia and all these big teams. Yeah, they've struggled because they got new players, new coaches. It's a whole lot, especially non-conference, because I think we're hyping it up a lot more than what it is, and we haven't gotten to conference yet.
No, and that's always the pace of college football, though, and you know this. Like non-conference is always the point of hype, and then we see who's real and who's not.
It's the same with the AP pool.
Yep.
Like it realistically does not matter.
No, and I think it's going to change a significant amount before the end of the year, just based on. I mean, who do they have? 7 teams or in the top 8 from the SEC?
Yeah, they have
all
6
of those
out of
teams
8.
are probably going to end up losing at least a game or 2.
Yeah, they're going to drop.
There's no way that you're telling me that the top 8 of the top 7, or sorry, 7 of the top 8 teams in the country are all going to come out of the same conference, especially when somebody's going to have a 4-loss team. Like, it's just not going to happen. No. Another game that I wanted to bring up real quick because it was a shellacking. Kansas State, Thursday night against Arizona, who was ranked before going into this game. They are no longer ranked, losing 31-7. K-State's got a wild environment. I'm very scared. We'll talk more about Oklahoma State in the second segment, but I'm very scared for when we go there.
Manhattan's crazy.
It's a crazy place to play.
They're a bunch of maniacs.
Yeah, I think this Arizona team, you're starting to figure out the trend on how to beat them.
Yeah.
Make Noah Fafita throw 1,000,000 times a game, and he's good at it, but make it so that they don't have a run game. Their top running back had 48 yards and 1 touchdown on 14 carries, which is fine, but not great. Avery Johnson is a freak.
Yeah.
Avery Johnson is going to be the future of that program.
I wasn't even going to mention Avery Johnson. I was more impressed with Donovan Edwards. Not Donovan Edwards. Dylan Edwards?
Dylan Edwards, the running back.
Dylan.
They're all close, the former running back from Colorado.
Yeah, he was a stud. He had a punt return touchdown, a rushing touchdown. Like, that guy literally, took over that game. Part of Avery Johnson's just masterclass game against Arizona. Yeah. So,
dude, can I tell you right now, it's crazy that I'm looking at this. Avery Johnson, 14 for 23, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns passing. Okay, that's fine. 17 carries, 110 yards on the ground. That's nasty.
Yeah, there's not much I can say to that.
No, I mean, it's just he's a great dual threat quarterback, and you move on from that. I just wanted to mention it because it was a ranked matchup going in. All right, we have a new little small segment in here. It's going to be the question of the day for us.
The ruling on the field.
The ruling on the field question of the week. We want to figure out what we're trying to get in here. And we want to start easy, a little light, nice thing to go into. And so we went with our best jerseys from the last week and our worst jerseys from the last week. Gotcha. Now, I started us out, and I'm going to get hot about these. The worst jersey for me that I saw this last week was the TCU Bullfrogs. Yeah. Horned Frogs, sorry. I believe there should be a graphic for that up there, Bridge. Shout out to our great TD, Bridget.
Shout out to Bridget.
There it is, right there. Now, the photo shoot looks awesome. It looks cool, right?
Yeah.
And then you watch it in person. There is nothing on these godforsaken jerseys. The TCU logo is tinier than the Nike one that they put in there. They have literally it's a blackout jersey. That's cool. And you have a metallic helmet to it. It is so boring. And I'm sorry, TCU, I liked your jerseys before when you had all the really side cool on the piece and had the different crescent on the inside of the mouth. Yes, they look sweet. Yeah. And now I watched their blackout jerseys against UCF, and I was like, neither one of these jerseys are great. I kind of thought UCF was fine, but if you're going to do a blackout jersey or all of your jerseys, they just are so bland. They have nothing to them.
Another team, this was my worst when it came to the Big 12, and Bridget, I'll have my graphic ready. I'm going to go with Kansas when they went up against UNLV. It was, I don't even know. I mean, it doesn't look bad. I like the lettering. I like the system, and the setup is great.
Is it the logo?
It's the logo, and I think they could have just added some red in there. And plus, when you lose to UNLV, who you had
actually look pretty bad.
I'll ruin your surprise. You had them as their best. I honestly did not see it. I don't like the gray when it came to UNLV, but the fact that you lost to UNLV with that blackout, I think you could have done better with that. And all I gotta really say for Kansas is just stick to basketball.
That Kansas logo is so ugly. I don't know why they use it. Because the original one's awesome. Yeah. I think the original Jayhawk that they have with the trot on there is so cool. Just the head of the Kansas Jayhawk looks so dumb.
And why is it so wide?
Yeah, it's the longest logo I've ever seen. But all right, let's be a little bit more positive now. I'm going to pass it over to you. I'll let you start since you already spoiled my best.
Hey, my fault. I mean, I had to say it. They went up against.
They did. All right, who's your best jersey?
My best had to go to Wake Forest. Honestly, it's very simple. It was clean. They had the gold chrome helmet and then with the black. Bridget,
there it is.
Right there.
That was beautiful.
Like, look at that. I mean, that's truly just sleek right there, clean. I love just how simple it is. Especially with the shoulder little gradient stuff right there. That right there, I think I just wanted to take it up a little bit differently, but that was my best.
And they added, I mean, they had some nice things to it. I liked it a lot. All right.
A little flair.
Since you ruined mine already, we're just going to go ahead and throw the graphic up on screen. UNLV, and I'll explain why I like these gray jerseys and why I'll defend these gray jerseys. There are two pieces here that I want you to really pay close attention to.
Okay, I'm standing.
Number one, the lettering and the numbers are all outlined in that beautiful red color that they have on there. It's accented. They have good colors to it.
Looks like some high school stuff.
Hey, hold on. I'm not done yet.
Is this the first time we're debating, actually?
I think so. This is the fourth episode, and this is the first time we're going to debate. But also, the helmets, the sleek metallic helmets,
the helmets are cool.
That they have in there. And also, you get a little bit of a bonus on the jerseys when you go into somebody's house and beat another Power 5 team. So that really does help as well. But
I guess so.
I think that those are going to look sweet, and I think that we're going to really enjoy that segment moving forward. We'll have to figure out what we want to do for it exactly. But on the other side of this commercial break, when we get back, we're going into probably one of the biggest weeks in college football already. It's going to be the biggest week that we've seen so far, and it's going to be awesome. But we are beyond excited for it. We got 5 huge games that we're going to preview for you guys right after this.
My name's Kayla. I've been here since the beginning, so 4 years. Scratch is more focused on farm and mostly made in Oklahoma products, keeping it local. Sustainability is our biggest thing. That's one of the reasons why this place opened.
I've been the chef here at Scratch for 2.5 years. Started here as a line cook. Our food and drinks are a bit separate entities almost inside the restaurant. So the food is now up to 85% of the products we bring in are raised or grown locally. It's all based off of things that I grew up eating in southern Oklahoma, things my grandparents ate.
Fresh food, clean food, organic food, sustainability, that's all of our thing. From front of house to back of house, we're able to maintain both with freshness. But made in Oklahoma means we get it straight from the farms that are 20, 30 minutes, another little county away. We get it straight from them.
I'm Travis Taylor. I'm the general manager for the Hotel Indigo Tulsa Downtown. I have a real good understanding of the food scene in Tulsa, and I've loved to see the way it's evolved over the years, and I'm glad to be part of it.
My name's Kevin Kyle. I'm the executive chef. I started here, the idea was to do something local. Everything that we try to do has Oklahoma products.
Tulsa is a big oil boom when we were the oil capital in the early 1900s. How Route 66 put Tulsa on the map. And the menu around that was, well, what would an oil worker take out in their lunchbox? That's how Prospect kind of came from.
We never get crazy busy, so we can do a lot of different things with food. And we can do things like wine dinners and have local dinners. We have a private dining room that people can come.
I think being at the heart of the old Route 66 is kind of weighed into us getting a lot of different things brought in from different areas of the United States. When I taste something on our menu for the first time, the first thing I go is, that's Tulsa.
Welcome back to After Further Review, where we are getting ready for my favorite
Here we go.
of college football.
We are in conference.
Oh my goodness, dude. Conference games started out with a bang.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. I think there are going to be some really great games to go through. I'm going to go through all of them just real quick, and then we'll break down each one individually, starting off with College Game Day. Tennessee and Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the hosting team. We're going to look at the other games going on here. Number 24, Illinois, is traveling to number 22, Nebraska. Not expected to be a great game. Now it's going to be a really great game. Buffalo is going to Northern Illinois. What's it called? Ranked Illinois, but Northern Illinois, by the way, after beating Notre Dame.
Look at them.
And then number 12, Utah, is traveling to number 14, Oklahoma State, here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have a packed weekend, and I didn't even mention a lot of other games that I think are going to be pretty good as well. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of great ones. But let's start with game day. Let's start with Tennessee at Oklahoma. Ty, what are your thoughts on this game?
Dare I say, now you might think I'm wrong on this. Dates me back to 2012 when I'm thinking about what was I? I was in Pee Wee practice.
Yeah.
A new Texas A&M team is joining the SEC, and they're trying to figure out if they're going to be able to compete. And they have a young rising star quarterback, that being Johnny Manziel. Dare I say, I'm kind of seeing shades of A&M with Oklahoma, and that being Jackson Arnold.
I wouldn't disagree. Here's my thing. I disagree so strongly.
Okay.
Based on
I'm
the
not
team.
saying Jackson Arnold's going to be Johnny Football.
No, but I disagree by a couple of things. Number one, their offense has not been great. He's their leading rusher by over 60 yards. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know
They have not been able to run the ball at all. And they've played teams like Houston, and they've played teams that are just mediocre to all mediocre. Now you bring in an SEC Tennessee team that shellacked Kent State. Shellacked them. And I know that it's Kent State, yada, yada, yada. It was 66 to nothing at halftime. They scored one touchdown in the second half to make it 71-0. I have a really hard time thinking that Oklahoma, I get the home field advantage is going to be great for them and everything. I've already talked about how I think Nico is going to be one of the best quarterbacks out there. Okay. I think that their run game is phenomenal. I think Tennessee's going to shellac them. And I think that here's the biggest kicker for that.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Josh Heupel this week. We know the backstory, right?
Yeah.
He got kicked out. They chose Lincoln Riley over him. That's a good decision for OU. Nobody's saying that was a bad decision, but now he's coming back.
Yeah.
And now you have to imagine a guy that just put 71 points on Kent State, that just absolutely want to drive the knife into the heart, is going to want to do the same to his alma mater that kicked him out of a coaching spot.
That's fair enough to say. I'm not. The Palace is going to be storming, especially with game day. They haven't had a chance like that in a while. When it comes to Jackson Arnold, all I've seen is that this guy is the next Heisman winner. It's going to be the next quarterback carousel when it comes to OU Historics. If he wants to win the Heisman, he's got to show out in this game right here, right now. He's got to make his moment, because you are right. They have been struggling with a lot of things when it comes to it. But that defense has been great, and you can't deny that. They've been able to at least pull away from it, and then they've beaten Tulane and some other teams like that. Now, I'm not saying they're going to full out win this, because I still got Tennessee winning. But I think OU is going to be a lot more dominant, especially with that defense, than what people are, because people are expecting this to be a blowout. They think OU is going to get wiped down there. And it's not necessarily I'm going to think it's going to be totally a blowout, but I think OU is going to be competitive in this game. I think the Palace is going to be storming, and I wouldn't be surprised if OU loses by 4. If OU loses by 4, I'd take that. Honestly, if you're an OU fan.
Am I one of those crazy people if I say Tennessee's going to win by 14?
I don't blame you for saying that.
I don't see a scenario where Oklahoma is going to be ultra competitive in this game. You're going to have to get to a spot where everybody's talking about, we got to make Nico a thrower. We got to make Nico a thrower. What about the other side?
Yeah.
What's going to be your run team? So now we have a Tennessee team that we're worried about nothing really with their defense, because they've allowed 6 points all year. They have an offense that's phenomenal. I think they're going to walk in there and make a statement, especially to a new SEC team.
You can really go any way with this.
Yeah, I think
and that's what's great.
It's part of the toss-up in this is that we really just don't know.
I'm also just saying this for Oklahoma. It's because everyone wants a competitive conference for every conference. And everyone's been looking at Texas like, yeah, they're going to be a clear front runner, and OU's just going to try and find their way. Honestly, do I see them in the middle of the pack? Yes, but I still see it competitive. And I think that's what's great about this conference. It's going to be a lot more competitive than other people think, because they just think OU is going to lose to every team besides like Vandy.
That's fair. I think that they also have a gauntlet of a schedule this year, and that's part of it.
They do.
All right, we got to move on.
We do,
We talked a
unfortunately.
little bit about this, but your home state, number 24 Illinois, is traveling down to number 22 Nebraska. Dylan Raiola in another big game, another big test it kind of moment, and I would say this is their biggest test of the year by far.
Yeah.
Colorado was not a real team to say that you can put up against a ranked team. Kyle McCord in Illinois, no, that's Syracuse. I apologize. Illinois has looked great so far throughout the
have.
season. Who did they upset? Who was the upset game that they had?
Kansas.
Kansas. Right? Well, Kansas.
Kansas.
Not a basketball school.
Yeah.
Back to it again, anyways. But I think this is gonna be a good game, and I honestly am kind of feeling the same way I did about the Tennessee situation. I think Nebraska's gonna rock them here.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. The only thing I really have with notes is just Luke Allmeyer has been looking real good. 6 touchdowns, close to 700 passing yards for the year, and then 4 of those touchdowns being from their star receiver, Pat Bryant. It'll be interesting to see how they are able to contain them. I do see Nebraska kind of taking over this game, and I think that's going to be kind of like the little stoplight to Illinois. I think they're going to have a great year, especially because the improvement they've had the past like 5 years. Because again, it's been ugly, but other than that, you got to take what you can get with Illinois, especially. So, honestly, I got Nebraska winning by, let's go 17.
Yeah, and I think Nebraska is, especially now that they're ranked and undefeated, that's going to be one of the hardest home places to play in all of the country. They showed up for Colorado. We saw that. We saw how they played with Colorado. All right, moving a little bit more north. I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying that after a Northern Illinois or a Illinois and Nebraska game, but we're going to Northern Illinois, where the Huskies are going to be playing Buffalo.
Honestly, dating back like last year when we kind of started projecting this stuff, did you ever think we were going to talk about Buffalo versus Northern Illinois?
No,
Neither
not a
did
chance.
Neither
I,
did
honest to God, and I'll hold my hand up here, I did not know that Northern Illinois was a Division I football team.
I don't blame you for saying that.
I genuinely just I had
don't blame you
never
for saying that.
I had never seen them on. I had never seen one of their games. I had never seen anything. I don't pay that much attention to the MAC. Like it's not a big thing for me.
Who would?
No, exactly.
I mean,
And
unless if you're an alumni or alumnae.
Yeah.
But
But I just-
structure class.
Shout out to Dr. Abernathy.
Shout out to him.
But no, never in a million years would I have thought this. But when you put yourself on the national spotlight, this is exactly what you do. And that's part of what's great for Northern Illinois right now is you ride the slave as long as you can. You keep winning games. You keep getting people to talk about you. And you will be the Cincinnati of this year. You will be the team that everybody, the UCF of previous years, right? These are how these programs get elevated really quickly. Like we saw a UCF team that was really good for 3 years and they got an invitation to the Big 12. And now they're in a big boy conference. Cincinnati, same idea. So it's kind of the same idea, some of what they're looking for right now, especially with the Pac-12 expanding. And who knows? They might pull everybody from everywhere else. But Buffalo, who just upset Florida State, we can call it an upset for now, but Florida State's pretty awful.
I
So
mean, they
I'm
were
not sure.
3-0. Florida State was 0-2.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't.
To be fair, it was down in
Wasn't an
Tallahassee,
upset.
which is a very far drive for them.
Yeah.
That's a hard road trip for them.
a toughie.
But I still think it was kind of a meant to be kind of moment. But in this game of underdog stories, we'll say specifically, who do you have?
I really just want to go Northern Illinois. I mean, I love the story. I
Ride
love
the
the
wave.
coaches. Ride the wave. I mean, this is like a March Madness type team, a Cinderella type story. How could you not say Northern Illinois is the team to go here? Especially because they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about them anymore, but
No,
they beat
exactly,
Notre
and
Dame.
it's a tough situation, especially when you don't know a ton about either of the teams.
Right.
We do enough research on here to understand about the teams and make sure that we're not just talking out of our whats.
Yeah.
But we're also on there making sure that we know enough. And when there's 134 FBS teams, it's hard to get to Northern Illinois.
It's hard to
and
know
Buffalo.
every single player, every single
Exactly.
team, every single coach. Like it's hard. I mean,
For two
especially
teams
with a 12 team.
that we do know the coach of, USC and Lincoln Riley, Michigan and Sharon Moore.
I'm just gonna ask you this straight off: is Michigan cooked?
Yeah.
You think they're done?
Yeah.
I
I do.
blame-
Because here's my thing. You proved last week against Arkansas State that you don't have a pass game.
Right.
Arkansas State. I completely get because the week before it was Texas. You may just be understanding what level are we at this point? Because Texas is the number one team in the country right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would either say it's them or Georgia. And then okay, we're one tier below that. And then we get into the week after and we're still struggling against Arkansas State. We're still having our issues there. I'm really scared for Michigan in this situation until the weather gets cold. Because if this team cannot run the football effectively and be that strong physical team that they need to be, I don't know if they're gonna be able to throw the ball.
Yeah, especially like Donovan Edwards has not had the year that everyone thought he was going to have. Especially, I mean, the guy got the cover for 25 ahead of Ollie of all people, and so it's really just been weird thinking about because from a national championship. But this is also like this happened with TCU, and this is now happening with Michigan. They're going to find a way to come back. It's just going to take a couple years because all these teams have loaded up from the transfer portal, and they kind of stuck with their seniors, and that's gonna.
Do you know what's weird though with Michigan?
what?
They have a lot of talent.
They do.
They
yes.
have probably, in my opinion, the two best, if not two of the best defensive players in the country right now in Will Johnson and Mason Graham.
Yeah.
I'd say that they are the best two people at their position. Will Johnson's the best corner in all of college football. Mason Graham's the best D tackle in all of college
I
football.
don't blame you for saying that.
You have offensive playmakers. We talked about Dylan Edwards. They brought in a bunch of really good offensive linemen. You'd like to hope that Alex Orji or Davis Warren could be enough of a threat with
just
people on
weird.
the outside. You have a top tight end that's going to get drafted in the first round. You have a lot of these pieces that are supposed to be really good. It's a matter of actually executing it and doing it.
And just the play style of it all.
It's frustrating to watch. And I think watching them against this USC team, it's going to be so apparent.
Especially because USC is going to be pass heavy.
Yeah, it's going to be Lincoln Riley in Ann Arbor. I think the only chance that they really have is controlling that game by the line of scrimmage, which USC has looked improved.
They've
looked phenomenal on defense. Not just good. They've actually looked like a real defensive team.
And we talked about it when they beat LSU, and what is it? It comes with when it came to LSU, we said that they only gave up 20 points, but you really need that if it's just USC. You can't give up 40s, but if you can get in the punt twice or 3 times, you pretty much have that game.
Yes, this is a Lincoln Riley-led team that knows how to score points in bunches, knows what they're doing all of the time.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to score with them, and I was kind of worried about the same thing with Texas and a Sarkisian-led team that knows how to score all the time. I worry that it's going to have a lot of the same effect, and I think that Michigan's going to fall in a very similar way. I think some people were surprised by the score difference in that one.
Yeah.
I will not be surprised if USC walks into Michigan and wins by 20.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I just don't think, unless they let Alex Orji
maybe
run
not
all
20,
over the yard.
maybe like 14 or 17.
Hey, I'm
But,
going to stick to my guns. I'm going to
yeah.
say that they're going to win by 20, and I think that they're going to walk in there and come out a top 10 team.
We'll see, I guess.
But we got one final game in here that we got to squeeze in, and I'd say it's the one that we're the most excited about.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
First game in the Big 12. Welcome to Stillwater, Oklahoma, Utah.
Welcome to
The number 12
Stillwater.
Utah Utes are coming down to Stillwater, Oklahoma to play the number 14 Oklahoma State Cowboys. And this has been a weird start for both of them.
Yeah.
Cam Rising got hurt last week in a weird apparent finger injury with Baylor and didn't play the game. The team looked fine, not great against a lower level Utah State team. Oklahoma State has been completely flipped of their identity.
Yeah.
Their identity right now is passing the ball. They're really, I think they're top 5 in passing yards in the country right now.
Yeah, Bowman's in
But they
the
can't
top
run the
5.
ball, which is not at all what anybody expected from them. So my question to you is, do we see that trend continue for Oklahoma State, or do we see it flip on its head?
Honestly, when it came to last year, running the ball was also a problem those first 3 games until they started doing it from the shotgun or gun. Honestly, when it comes to Oklahoma State, this is exactly how I expected. You blow out South Dakota State, but you had some simple miscues like, bad coverages and all that. You go into Arkansas, struggle, but you got out of there. And you still showed that you were able to fight and able to come back. And in this third game against Tulsa, you just blew them out from the passing game. It's exactly how I expected. Now it's just going into Utah.
Yep.
And
Who
if
do you
you
got
get
winning this game? I need it from you.
Oklahoma State by 4.
Yeah. If I'm putting my homer side aside, the biggest thing that I think right now is that I worry about their corners, and I worry about
the corners a lot.
I worry about the Utah corners, and I worry about our corners as well. I think this is going to be kind of a high-scoring game. I do have home field playing at a difference, and I think because I was at that Arkansas game, it showed me how much of a difference BPS can make. And so I have Oklahoma State winning by less than a touchdown as well. I have a really, really close game. But
The atmosphere was crazy.
it's going to be an awesome week of college football. We're super excited for it. But we got to get into the next segment on here. On the other side of the break, we're going to be recapping the NFL and getting into our 3 Ws right after this.
My wife lived east of here, about 35, 40 miles, something like that, over at Lamont. I was dating her from over at Alba when we were going to college. I knew about the well then. It was a great well. It was great water. I'd stop there, stick my head under it, wake up, drive on home, that kind of thing. And people talked about bottling this water. And so that's why I started thinking about doing that. And so in 2003, the property come up for sale. And so we started working on that, had the opportunity to buy it. The hopes are when folks drink our water is that they'll drink it for a few days and find out the difference. They'll start feeling better because there's been no chemical in our water. There's a list of good things that we have. We don't have any bad things in it. This company means a lot to me because I guess we started it from scratch. And to be able to have it where it's at today, I don't see this as the end at all. I see the future of Divine Water as being worldwide, which will bring outside dollars into the state. It means a lot to me because I started it, I guess, and our family started it.
My name's Dennis Abernathy. Lived here since 1968, and I consider myself one of Stillwater's oldest original family jewelers. Here at Dennis the Jeweler, we're more about personal service. My father always told me that anybody can sell the jewelry, and what we're doing is completely different, learning to do the repair work. That is one thing that will keep your business alive, because anybody can sell it, but not anybody can fix it. To me, jewelry is very, very personal. Every piece of jewelry has its own story, and I get to hear hundreds of stories from my clients, which I love to hear. There's always a story with it. I mean, you buy a piece of jewelry for a show of appreciation, a sign of love. There are a lot of different aspects for jewelry when you purchase it.
Welcome back. We are back in with our third segment. We're talking about Sunday football and everything else in between. Now, we did our college 3Ws last week, so we wanted to switch it up just a little bit. We wanted to look at the big boys in the NFL, as I always like to say.
Yep.
Guys on Sunday. We had our 3Ws from each of us. We wanted to look specifically at who, what, where.
Yeah.
So, want to go ahead and start off with yours?
Yeah, we'll start off with mine. For my 3Ws, Bridget, I believe my graphics right there, that's actually Landon, so we're going to translate over
we'll
to him.
switch it right over to me. That's totally fine. That would be my bad.
You're
I
good.
will add on there. So, my three are the what as the New Orleans Saints. Dude, starting off this grade has been phenomenal for them. I think it's a crazy, crazy start for them, and nobody really expected it out of Derek Carr. My who, Aiden Hutchinson. I know they lost the game. I know they didn't end up beating Tampa. That dude's ridiculous, and he's going to very quickly, I believe, put himself in the echelon of a Nick Bosa, of a Myles Garrett, of those kind of guys.
Yeah.
And I think the where
He's not already there.
is US Bank Stadium, where they will be hosting the Houston Texans this week after beating the San Francisco 49ers at home. I think this is the absolute real test to see, is Sam Darnold going to be an actual real team with this? And is Kevin O'Connell going to be competitive in this division? Because nobody expected the Vikings to be good.
No.
Nobody expected. Everybody thought they were going to be the fourth team in this division, which is totally expected. They lost their starting quarterback.
We had them as their number one pick.
Yeah, we had them as a low-level pick on this team. And give credit where credit's due. They've won 2 games, and I'm going to be really curious to watch that game on Sunday and see how it goes. I want to kind of switch back just a little bit. I'm going to go back to the New Orleans Saints for just a second. Mm-hmm. Dude, it's not just wins. It's shellacking.
It's dominance.
It's okay. The Panthers are a whole different ordeal, and we'll get into Bryce Young and all that. But for them specifically, their offenses looked elite when a bunch of other offenses have looked really bad. Their defense has been really good especially early in games.
And they've been having fun.
Yeah, and they separate from teams, and then they're awesome. Yeah. When did Rashid Shaheed become the best deep threat in the league? When did Derek Carr become one of the best deep ball throwers in the league? Like, it doesn't make any sense if you look at it from a paper standpoint, but they have been so dominant and so good, and I'm really curious to see if they can keep doing it moving forward.
Just adding on to that a little bit, I'm just happy for Derek Carr. I mean, finally, he's been going through so much, and I love that 2016 MVP type year. Was it 2016 or 15?
I think it was 2016 because it would have been an election year. Yeah.
Yeah. So he truly has been balling out, dealt with injuries, dealt with coaching staffs, and finally it looks like he found somewhat of a place. At least he's having a great time for these 2 weeks. It might change. It's New Orleans. They're kind of they've been a bipolar team when it comes to dominance, and then next week they just look terrible. But for some reason, this team looks different for some odd reason.
And you know the other thing that I've noticed about that too?
What?
You don't have to be special in this division.
No.
You don't have to be world-ending in this division. You know what you need? You need 10 wins.
Yeah.
To guarantee yourself to probably win this division, you need 10 wins. Because it's so mediocre. The Panthers are going to be the worst team in the NFL.
For sure.
They're going to be the worst team in the NFL. Again, we'll get farther into that later. But they're going to be really bad. The Buccaneers look good. They look like they're going to be a competitive team. I think that they're going to falter at a few points. The Falcons have had their issues and had their moments. So I think you really just need to get to 10 wins with this team, and you're already a fifth of the way there.
It's funny enough that you mentioned the Falcons, because do we want to get into my 3Ws?
Let's go ahead and do it.
So we're going to start off with my what, actually, Bridget, if you want to pull up that thing.
There
we
it
go.
is.
So for my what, I have the Arizona Cardinals, which I'll get into them a little bit more. My where will be at, where is it? What's
Lincoln
it called?
Financial
Lincoln
Field.
Financial Field versus the Falcons. Big Kirko got his primetime win, and I like it a whole lot. And then you have Sam Darnold. You kind of talked about it. I love seeing it going from the Jets and then going from another poverty franchise being the Panthers. Now somewhat finding a home. It will be interesting to see how he pans out, because we've seen this from time to time when it comes to Minnesota quarterbacks, especially with Josh Dobbs last year, and now it's Sam Darnold. They've had the great 2-week run, and now we're going to see how it goes. And one thing, because I wanted to add into this, Arizona, thank you. Thank you for giving Marvin Harrison the ball. I don't care if that was his first game. He should not. Who is it that I put on the? I think it was Greg Dortch.
Yeah.
He had 7. He had more receptions than Marvin Harrison. Yeah. This is the closest. I'm gonna say this is the closest thing you have to Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh,
The closest
I think in
thing.
some ways it might be better.
It might be
He
better.
might be a more explosive athlete.
And I've always wanted to see Larry Fitzgerald to win a Super Bowl, and I wasn't able to. Please, for the love of God, Arizona, do not mess us up in the draft. Don't mess us up in the offseason. We want to see Kyler and Marvin Harrison the ball out. Just please give Marvin Harrison the ball. Don't do anything stupid. Don't trade away your picks like the Panthers did.
No.
Don't try and sign old veteran. Just rely off Kyler and Marvin Harrison, and I'll be happy.
And just keep moving forward. Do you know what's one of my favorite post-game quotes from him was, Kyler missed 4 throws. All 4 targets were to me. I'm unhappy. And I think that is the perfect way to sum up a guy that is going to be one of the best receivers in this league, because the man had 4 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, most of which came in the first quarter. The 2 touchdowns definitely did. He's the first player to ever do that in the first quarter since, I don't know, his dad, Marvin Harrison Sr. And he is so good. You just got to get him the ball. Kyler looked phenomenal outside of that as well. He was moving around, making really good plays, had a really good week, and I think he looks mostly back to himself.
He does.
Just that dude, Marvin Harrison, is going to be such a problem.
Have you seen the video with him and his dad? And
No.
they asked him what the difference was between them two. They said that Marvin Harrison, the original Marvin Harrison, would ask and demand for the ball, and Marvin Harrison Jr. would not. And it looks like now we're kind of seeing where he's kind of getting a little cocky and confident, saying, I need the ball, which you need that for a receiver.
Yes, and especially for a receiver of that talent when we're talking about the rest of that receiving core. They have Greg Dortch as their second receiver. Yeah. I love Greg Dortch. We had a great photo of him from Wake Forest earlier up. Rocked that jersey all he wanted to. He's not a number 2. Mm-hmm. This dude is a game changer on offense. Your offense looked phenomenal this week. You dominated against the Rams.
The
I
Rams
thought
of
were
all
going to be good.
teams.
Yeah, and I mean they're starting to pile up the injuries. Puka Nakua's out. Cooper Kupp's out. Stafford had another back injury thing come up.
It's going to be all up to Kyron Williams.
Yeah, it's starting to fall apart a little bit. But you still take that kind of win from this team, especially when you jumped out to that kind of early lead and was making those kind of throws from Kyler, making those kind of catches. I just think that they're setting themselves up for success now. And that's what you're supposed to do. When you draft a guy that high, when you spend that much draft capital on somebody, that's what you like to do, and you bring him in to be that game changer for you.
For sure. I mean, another thing I want to add, because we've kind of talked about Minnesota, get them out.
Cold like Minnesota.
The Falcons actually winning against the Eagles primetime game, and I don't know, man. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, they kind of had the same problems they did with this game, what they did last year, lowering down the competition, and somehow just squeaking away. But this time they didn't. Big
didn't get away
Kirko
from it
finally
this
got the
time.
game.
Yeah.
And again, I like it.
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh, God bless this team, this Falcons team.
This is going to be the most interesting division we're ever going to see.
It's going to be so weird. There's so many unknowns. They played well. I think that they deserve to win the game. Was I impressed with the Eagles at all? No. Was I super impressed with Kirk Cousins and the Falcons?
No. I mean, they were telling Penix to get in the first half like the fans were. The only
Yeah,
thing
they
I
were
liked about it
chanting
was
for
the
him.
defense.
And also my favorite thing, Bijan Robinson. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's
Thank God.
He is the actual meme of the Lamborghini next to the trash house. And that's not even disrespect towards the Falcons, because I think they have a lot of great players.
No, that's disrespect.
Bijan is so good that he can be that guy.
That's disrespect towards Jalen Rager. Because why? Honestly, you don't even know. Why would you post that getting sent to the practice squad?
No, I saw that.
You've been through 3 teams, and you get to the practice squad, and you're like, oh yeah, they don't understand.
For
my
context for
talents.
everybody, Jalen Rager, former first-round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, who's been cut now 3 times, was sent to the Patriots practice squad, and after one practice with them and with the team, put in that he was the Maserati in the terrible house next door, and it was like, dude, you have no ground to stand on as a guy that just got moved to the practice squad as a former first-round pick.
Dude, I'm sorry. When your best receivers are Kendrick Bourne and all them, and you get sent to the practice squad, you have one of the worst receiving cores.
Yeah.
That's a bad look. I mean,
you know, the only reason you got that opportunity was because of how bad the receiving core is, and they were taking a flyer on a guy that was a former first round.
Yeah,
pick.
they're just like, why
You know,
not?
that's the reason they wanted
Yeah.
to bring him in and have a chance with him.
That's exactly how I looked at
before
it.
week 3, the guy's off the team.
yeah.
Guess you suck. That's our problem to see later. But anywho, I don't know how we got from Bijan Robinson.
I don't know either. I mean,
But
it just
anywho,
hit me in the head.
I think it was a really interesting week for football. I
It
think
was.
there was some really good games. Excuse me. Buccaneers beating the Lions was a really good one, and I
Yeah.
thought that was a super interesting game. We talked about it a little bit. I thought this week was weird in some ways. There were certain games that, like, I have to mention the Commanders beating the Giants.
Yeah.
Without
that was
So
That was weird.
Giants kicker Graham Gano gets hurt before the game, strains something in his leg, has some sort of issue, so they don't have a kicker for the game. Keep that in mind when I tell you the rest of these stats that we're about to go through here, and I tell you that the Commanders won this game.
Yeah, I'm getting ready.
First quarter, touchdown Devin Singletary, field goal for the Washington Commanders. It's 6-3. Remember, they don't have a kicker, so they try a missed kick with their punter, and he misses it. Okay. Field goal. So it's now 6-9. Nice. The touchdown for Malik Neighbors, his first of his career, failed 2-point conversion from Daniel Jones. It is now 12-9 at halftime. Commanders add 2 more field goals onto there. They're up 15-12. Weird score. Weird
Terrible,
score.
weird score.
Then the Giants take a lead, 18-15, with Wan'Dale Robinson, and they go for another 2-point and fail it again. Commanders hit 2 more field goals.
That's just such a Commanders and Giants game.
It's such a Giants thing to do.
The only thing I got out of that game was just the jersey swap between Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, no, and then they have an actual competent kicker for the first time in a long time.
Would you look at that?
It's the first time ever in NFL history that a team has scored 3 touchdowns, not allowed one, and lost the game.
Yeah, another game we kind of wanted to add in there was just Buffalo versus Dolphins.
That was a very good game.
It was a James Cook. Buffalo has a running game.
Yes,
I guess.
they do.
Before we go into the seasons and all that, we assume injuries are not going to happen.
Yes.
And so when it comes to Tua and all that, it was just tough to watch. I mean, he's such a great competitor, and he really, whenever he's able to get on the field, he's not. But he doesn't slide correctly. He always wants to take the big hits just to show that he can be a competitive quarterback. He just ended up with another concussion. You just hate to see it.
I worry that it's over for him. I worry that you kind of have to be done at this point. And I don't think that's a bad thing for him, man.
It's not, man.
You got to take what you got and move forward. Like you have to trade your mental sanity and who you are as a person for the money. I get that you're waiting on that guaranteed contract to kick in next year. You just got to wait on it for a little while.
He does have insurance, though.
He does.
He does, from his contract. Another thing, it's just sad to say, I don't think he's going to retire yet, though. I think he's still going to have that competitive drive. He's going to say he can keep going. He's going to keep doing these, like, mixed martial art, like, head protections and all those classes. I really would rather just see him just be safe in all this situation. But, I mean, it's his choice. He wants his money. He can get it. But, honestly, I really just wish nothing.
Can I lighten the mood a little bit?
Let's do that.
Let's laugh at Will Levis for a second, shall we?
Dude, the fact he's had back-to-back memes.
The best memes I've seen in so long. Since, like, who was it? Andy Dalton when he is playing with the Saints and he has his heads up and Marco Wilson's in the background doing a backflip.
Yeah.
There's that one. And then there's these 2 Will Levis throws. And shout out to Alyssa Brannett. And I think that her take, the more and more I see it, the more and more it
shout out to the We Know Ball show.
Yeah, that is a great show, by the way. And I think that they have really great content. You should go check them out.
You should.
For context, Alyssa picked the Titans to win, and I've made a big deal about it the whole time ever since. I just don't see how this guy is good. What are you looking forward to with Will Levis? I don't get it.
Neither do I. But it's funny.
It is funny, and I think that it's just a good chuckle to laugh at the end of it.
Might as well just end that to the commercial break.
We will get right into commercial break here in just a second. But on the other side, we got our final segment. We got to talk about why young QBs are struggling and what we think is the actual true reason behind it. Whether it's the QBs, the coaches, the GMs, how they're set up.
We're about to find out.
We're going to talk about all of that right after this.
We would design something, it was set on the counter, and people was either, if enough of them said, this isn't it never made to the line. Dad was excited that they're all original. They were all designed on Mom's kitchen table, and it gets in your blood after a while.
We're very happy that Pamela and Michael have taken over the business and kept the family going.
We took the business over in 2017. When we found that it was available, we wanted to keep the legacy of family alive, but it was also incredible products that deserved to be a part of Made in Oklahoma's story. We were a part of Made in Oklahoma years ago, and so it kind of grew as Made in Oklahoma grew.
Oklahoma is ingrained into everything that we did. We've been here most of our life. That's what we entailed our whole business on, was the Oklahoma homegrown feeling.
Deep Fork Foods started in 2014. We started off with our nut products, and now we produce everything from jarred products to cookie mixes and pancake mixes and dried products for people, as well as our spice blends. Now we produce over 168 different products for ourselves and about 20 to 30 other companies in Oklahoma.
I'm Cindy Stewart. I'm one of the owners of Deep Fork Foods. We've gone from just making our own stuff and doing just small things to being able to co-pack and work with other companies and individuals within Oklahoma and across the United States as well.
I'm just really thankful for the journey that we've had so far and really look forward to the future where we're taking Deep Fork Foods and being able to provide more value for Oklahoma and its economy as well as all the people within the state.
I love the opportunities that being in the food business provides. I absolutely love sharing food and good stories with people, so this just gives us another connection. And I can't wait to see where this path takes us with it.
Welcome back. Final segment.
There we go.
Before we
Fourth
get started, we have to shout out one of the guys that we love and adore in some ways, not in all ways, but he's a journalism major who pushed the sport forward and pushed our major forward. And we have to shout out Woj. Thank you, Woj, for what you've done for the community, for being one of the best reporters and beat reporters that we've ever seen with the most dedication to your job.
He can finally put the phone at rest.
For now. He's going to go start recruiting kids at St. Bonaventure. But for right now, he should happily retire for what he's doing. We wanted to make sure that we shouted that guy out for being such a phenomenal reporter before we get into our final segment. But in this final segment, we wanted to look at why is the hit rate on young QBs so low? We've always heard this. We've always talked about this. There's usually going to be one guy or two guys that succeed from a draft class. Well, why is that? And that trend is not wrong. What they're saying in that is not wrong. When you look a little bit before this, some of the younger guys, and obviously the reason that we're talking about this is because of Bryce Young becoming benched and being benched for Andy Dalton 2 weeks into the season. But when you look back at the last 3 draft classes, that's kind of where I went from 2021 to 2024. There have been so many bad cases. Now, there have been their good. We have C.J. Stroud and Brock Purdy, who are both top 10 in QBR. But why do you think QBs are failing at such a high rate?
Landon, have you ever heard of the phrase, it's not the camera that makes the picture, it's the person behind the camera? That's how I look at this, especially with Bryce Young. And honestly, you can look back with like Sam Darnold and I would even say Josh Rosen in all those cases. Josh Rosen obviously has not panned out. That's a little different. But these quarterbacks are going in when it comes to it, are not prepared and are not going to go into – they're not prepared and ready. It's not like a wide receiver or a rookie cornerback where you can slide them in there and they're going to make an immediate impact. No, they got to learn through the new playbook, a new regime of offense. And obviously, whenever these high draft picks are going through, they more than likely, again, like I talked about the last episodes, have the worst wide receivers, worst O-line, terrible coaching probably, and then front office even makes it worse. Bryce Young – we've talked about, I'm going to say, as long as Davis Temper is in that front office, he's not going to succeed. And now I'm hoping when it comes to the Bryce Young benching, it's more of just, listen, we know your confidence is down. You low-key, like you're not throwing it right. You're not thinking. You're just depressed at the moment. We just need you to reset you. And hopefully either by a couple weeks or maybe even next year, we're going to have you back. But I can't predict what Davis Temper's thinking because it's been a terrible show the past couple of years.
Yeah, David Tepper is one of the most egregious. No worries, you're all good. Yeah. I just want to make sure we knew his name. Throw his name out correctly on there. David Tepper is one of the worst owners, and maybe we shouldn't say his name right because maybe we should just acknowledge.
I didn't even care that I said it wrong. Now
maybe we should just acknowledge the fact that he's a terrible human being and has had a lot of his own issues, not only just as a football GM, but I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's somewhat of what you're talking about in there. But then I look back at cases like C.J. Stroud, who turned a wide receiver core that we thought was awful with Davis Mills. Nobody talked about Nico Collins being a 1,000-yard receiver. Nobody talked about any of these other guys that they've had on there. And they brought in Dalton Schultz, who was a fine tight end the year before that for Dallas. He was okay. He wasn't anything special. They brought in Dameon Pierce, who had a good rookie year and then had a tail-off year. And they had Nico Collins, and they brought in a 4th-round pick in Tank Dell. And they had one of the best offenses in the league last year.
Mind you, C.J. Stroud wanted Tank Dell and told front office, we need Tank Dell.
He did.
D'Amico Ryans is also a really great coach. And did he win Coach of the Year? Or was
he did.
Yeah.
I want to say Campbell. I want to say it was Campbell.
He was in consideration for Coach of the Year.
Yes.
So it's different. To me, that's different than going from that to where Bryce is at.
No, that's totally fair. And they are completely different scenarios, but I wonder to some degree if it does matter about the player and some of the physical traits. I think mostly when I look at it right now, the guys that have succeeded in bad scenarios are the physical freaks.
Yeah.
Josh Allen would have figured it out eventually as long as he could figure out the throwing, which he did, which he got to. We can talk about Buffalo pre-Josh Allen as well, being one of the worst organizations to be ever run since they made the Super Bowl. They were awful. They had made the playoffs one time. And now they're a perennial team in the playoffs because of a freak of nature like that who then figured it out with them. I guess what I'm thinking about with this is why is there such a low hit rate?
But we know Bryce is not a physical quarterback. I mean, he's
No.
5'10", 100, like barely 180 pounds probably. And the fact that he's not able to take those big hits like a C.J. Stroud and Josh Allen. He's not supposed to run. The way he was supposed to operate and why he was good at Bama, which I'll probably mention this a little bit, he had all the time in the world and was able to throw on the run and improvise whenever pressure did come. Now, mind you, I will say with Bama, they obviously had the best coach at the time, greatest coach of all time. They had the best wide receivers, best defense. Yes, he was set up for success. But it shouldn't be when it comes to that. I'm not saying he needs to have the best wide receivers and corners, but he's got to have a great supporting cast. He does have a decent O-line. They only gave up 4 pressures. But Adam Thielen, that's going to be your star receiver.
I get it. And here's the other thing, too. They've tried bringing in people. They traded up for Xavier Legette this year, who has not done a whole lot so far. They brought in a new offensive coach, and I think part of the issue is doing that, is you need the continuity. Guys, I'm going to look right in the camera here for you so you understand this. NFL offense is very hard. If you want your team to score 40 points a week like you do on Madden, it's not going to happen. They are playing against the best defenders in the entire country to stop them from this. And so I understand that there's going to be some struggle on it. I just worry right now from seeing a trend that there are so many failures, right? I talked about there are Stroud and Purdy right now. If I look back, the 2021 QB class, remember how touted that was, how explosive? There was a guaranteed 5 quarterbacks that were going to be drafted in that class, right? 1 is still with their original team, Trevor Lawrence.
You know, you had to go to your camera shot, so I'm going to go to mine. I'm going to go back for a little bit back. Marcus Mariota went through 7 head coaches in 4 years.
He did do that.
Like, that's a new offense and a new culture every year. That's another reason why he didn't get to pan out. Same with Jameis. I mean, the Buccaneers were terrible at the time, and they were supposed to be the savior. And
dude, I'm not.
Part of that, I blame that on Jameis.
I was gonna say that one.
Part of that, one you can't.
Jameis. That one you're not gonna defend yourself because he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
He had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Yes. I mean, are we not gonna face the fact that Mariota did lead that team to the division before Derrick Henry went into that prime run?
He did. He was fine. That was a lot of the AFC South that we had before, and I think that Mariota. Part of it, I think, in my opinion, honestly, and I'll transition it because of Mariota, is the talent evaluation. You have to understand as an NFL GM what your team wants to do and what you're looking to do. Mm-hmm. The best example of this is the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Ravens went from Joe Flacco, who was a stand-in-the-pocket passer, and they went out and got him good receivers who could make plays down the field because he had a rocket arm, right? They went out and accommodated their quarterback, made sure they had the right pieces around him. Then you bring in Lamar. Very different scheme. So now we're going to be a run-the-heavy team. We're going to make him succeed in the things that he's great at. I think part of my biggest issue that I'm finding, the best coaches in the NFL succeed because they adapt. Yes, exactly. Yes. They succeed because they adapt.
Yeah,
Sean McVay is still a great offensive coach because he's got new schemes every single week. He's got new things. Kyle Shanahan is still a phenomenal coach because he's got new things that he's adding every single week. I think it has a lot more, especially in the NFL, to do with the coach than it does anything else.
So then, okay, let me ask you this question. Do you think rookie quarterback should start off week 1? Because we've seen it with the Jordan Love situation.
It depends.
Depends.
I think it depends on the situation. Is there anybody in Chicago you would have rather have getting the reps than Caleb Williams? Absolutely not. There's no point. Why would I ever do that, right? If I'm looking at a scenario like, I don't know, Minnesota, where we're seeing Sam Darnold be a capable starter, make all the throws, do all the right things, be a good veteran in the room, would I have liked them to maybe say, hey, JJ, you're going to get a year of development behind this guy where you're going to learn from a dude that's been through all of these mistakes, been through all of these hard things. You're going to learn the offense. Then you get to be a starter. I think it should be a lot more accepted that teams are going to make these guys sit on the bench for a year and wait, like a Patrick Mahomes did, like some of these younger dudes did. It just is going to take time with some of these guys. And I think especially at the quarterback position, like we said before, you can go get an edge rusher and he can play right away because it's not a whole lot different than it is in college. The players are bigger. It's a lot faster. There are those type of aspects, but it's not a whole lot different assignment-wise and mental-wise. When you get in the NFL as a quarterback, your mental game is significantly higher than it ever was at the lower level.
Yeah, because you want to know who, the most blamed players when it comes to it? It goes number 1 refs, 2 O-line, then quarterback.
I would even argue the quarterback before O-line. And the O-line gets a lot of smack too, but I just would say eventually it ends up at the quarterback's feet, and I think that's part of it. One of the ones that I want to look at here, 2020 was kind of the last good QB class that had multiple guys that was really good in there. Herbert, Burrow, Tua, Hurts, and Jordan Love. That's a pretty dang good five, right?
That's a good one.
So if we're looking at those teams right now, obviously Justin Herbert wasn't supported very well with Brandon Staley. I'll state with that. But he showed the flashes, and he was a good quarterback, right? He played well with a good offense.
He did all he could.
Now, we mentioned this here. Joe Burrow with some of his stuff, and in the Cincinnati team that had been that kind of laughing stock of the league for a long time, I think it was because they brought in the right pieces around him. But I think he's another example of one of those guys that you throw into an offense, he will succeed somewhere, and where he was. Now, obviously, I've kind of made it clear that this year I'm not as high on them, but I think that he's still a phenomenal quarterback, and I think that he would have succeeded just about anywhere. Tua, again, I think there's just that different barrier level of some of these guys are going to succeed. Some of these guys are going to be good most of the time if you put them in just about any system. And then some of these guys are going to need help. Tua needed help. And that's not a bad thing, but to make Tua the most effective that he could be and to win football games with Tua, you had to go out and get two of the fastest receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, because, I mean, Tua was projected. It was originally tanked for Tua.
Yes.
And then he broke his hip against Mississippi State along with a broken nose, and I believe a broken toe. I don't know.
And
he
a
should have not
concussion.
been in that drive.
Correct.
But, and then, so obviously he's going through injuries, and then you put concussions on it. Another quarterback, a couple quarterbacks I want to mention is Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson from the Jets.
Yep.
Were unbearable to watch.
Yep.
It was terrible. And so now you're going from Sam Darnold now from the Vikings, great supporting cast, actually has some flashes. Zach Wilson, still not that great, but, you know, he's in a lot better situation than he is. And then even Baker with Carolina, he was horrendous with that Panthers squad. And then now he's essentially the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers till he wants to leave.
Yeah, he's got a 3-year deal with them, and they will figure it out there. I always wonder with this somewhat too, is it's like how much does college translate? Because it's such a different game. And we know this, like the hashes are shorter. If you watch, actually, you want to know the best example of this and how you're going to know the difference between college and the NFL. When you watch College Game Day this weekend, I want you to then compare that game to a Pittsburgh Steelers versus Baltimore Ravens game. I want you to just look at those two side by side. Josh Heupel offense and Brett Venables offense versus a Ravens versus Steelers game. And you tell me what you see as the difference in the two games there. But it's just a lot more spread out. There's a lot more opportunity for a quarterback to succeed in college. There's a lot more high-level playmakers and a lot of guys that are not going to be as good in the NFL at that point.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see if a talent evaluation standpoint changes on quarterbacks. Because part of the reason I think there's such high expectations is they're always high draft picks for the most part. We've had 3 quarterbacks drafted in the first round at least for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I wonder if it becomes a point more like what the 2020 draft class was. Or 2022, excuse me. Or was it 20? Or what was the year that Malik Willis came out?
That was, I believe, the next year.
So 21.
Yeah.
So it would have been 2021. That class only has one starter with Brock Purdy. And again,
maybe
obviously.
it was 22.
Maybe. I think
I think the years have like merged.
I know. They're all kind of
this
around.
point.
But okay, I have it in here as the 22 class. I got it.
Okay.
Right. So there are no true starters out of that draft class other than Brock Purdy. And that was the draft class that only Kenny Pickett went in the first round.
And Brock Purdy was is a one of one.
Yes, you're not going to find your quarterback of the future at Mr. Irrelevant again.
Yeah.
But I do think that it will change over time to see what the market needs for these positions. Because if you're drafting a quarterback just to succeed, Denver Broncos, it's not going to end up working out for you, especially if you draft one that's 24 years old and the rest of your roster sucks. I'm not talking anybody specific. But any final things before we get out of here? I do have one final thing for you. Who wins tonight?
Game. Yeah, I was about to ask that. Give me the Patriots by 4. I really like how their defense is.
Shout out the Pats. Hey, man, I'm sorry, but I got to take the Jets.
We'll
at
see.
home.
I'm like 0-2 at this point with Thursday night predictions.
I'm 1-1, so I'm going to take the other team against you. I have the Jets winning by 4 at home. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back next week. If you guys haven't already checked it out, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Okali. Check out all the other great stuff that's being produced up here.
Do.
And from us, make sure that you say hi to your parents. They miss you. They love you.
Mom.
Take care, guys. Have a good
See
night.
you guys.
Pecans are staple to Oklahoma. In fact, many of our native pecans come from trees that are older than Oklahoma statehood.
My father's the one that got us started into the pecan picking. I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and we started off with one little mechanical picker that you pulled behind a four-wheeler. Then we'd go home at night and we'd clean them on a TV tray. I guess watching my dad work hard when we were young, and people started trusting him and getting more and more groves, we just kept growing.
Being a relatively new and fresh company, we get to sit in the same room with people who have been a part of the Oklahoma economy for decades.
It's opened a lot of doors. It's gave us quite a bit of exposure, and I think people, will take a small company like us a little more serious. We're just going to continue growing as long as our community lets us and our customers keep on buying, and we'll see where it takes us.
Ace in the Bowl salsa started many, many years ago. I was trying to find a recipe to take to a family gathering, and so I started messing around with different recipes, and I took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and I came up with a salsa that is truly unique. Ace in the Bowl salsa is an olive oil based salsa with tomatoes, green chilies, green onions, and black olives. There's no sugar added, it's gluten free, low calorie, low carb, low fat, low sodium. So it's a very, very, very good alternative to any snack you may want. As of right now, I'm just looking to be in Oklahoma and having a successful business within the state. If my grandkids could ever take it over when they're old enough, that would be my dream.